The summer sun was very hot in Brooklyn, New York. It was late afternoon, and the air felt heavy and sticky. The heat came up from the concrete sidewalks and made the air shimmer. In a small apartment on the third floor, a 17-year-old boy named Leo sat by the window. Leo was not a normal teenager. He did not play video games all day. He did not spend his time at the mall with friends. Leo was an artist. His apartment was small. The walls were thin. He could hear the neighbors arguing next door. He could hear the loud music from the cars on the street below. He could hear the subway train rattling the windows every 20 minutes. But when Leo painted, he did not hear any of these things. When Leo painted, the world became quiet. He sat on a wooden stool that he found on the street last year. He fixed one of the legs with tape. In front of him was an easel. It was old and stained with many colors. On the easel was a canvas. Leo looked at his hands. They were covered in paint. There was blue paint under his fingernails and a smudge of yellow on his thumb. He picked up his brush. It was a small brush, and the hairs were getting old. He needed new brushes, but they cost too much money. Leo dipped the brush into a jar of water. The water turned a cloudy gray color. He was working on a very special painting. He called it Hope in the Abyss. Leo lived with his mother, Sarah. Sarah was a strong woman. She worked very hard. She worked at a diner downtown. She poured coffee and carried heavy plates of pancakes and burgers for 8 hours every day. Sometimes she worked 10 hours. Her feet always hurt when she came home. Leo looked around their small living room. It was also his bedroom. It was also his art studio. There was a sofa with a blanket over it to hide the holes. There was a small television that made a buzzing sound. On the table, there was a stack of bills: the electric bill, the rent bill, the phone bill. The pile of envelopes was high. He knew they had no money. They had enough for food and rent, but nothing else. There was no money for movies, no money for vacations, and definitely no money for expensive art schools. But Leo had a dream. On the table, next to his paint tubes, was a flyer. It was a glossy piece of paper. He found it at the public library 2 months ago. The paper showed a picture of a beautiful city. The buildings were old and golden. There was a big dome in the center. The sky was a perfect blue. The flyer said, "Summer program at the Florence Academy of Art. Study painting in Italy." Italy, Florence, the home of Michelangelo and Da Vinci. It sounded like a magical place. Leo touched the paper gently. He wanted to go there more than anything in the world. He wanted to learn from the masters. He wanted to see real art in real museums. He looked at the bottom of the flyer. The price was there in black ink: $5,000. $5,000. It was an impossible number. It was more money than his mother made in 3 months. It was enough to pay their rent for half a year. Leo sighed. A heavy sadness filled his chest. He knew he could not go. It was just a dream. But then he looked at his painting again. Hope in the Abyss. The painting showed a dark, deep hole. The bottom of the painting was black and dark purple. It looked scary and cold. It looked like a place where no one could survive. But at the very top of the painting, there was a light. It was a small, golden light, and reaching up from the darkness was a hand. It was a thin, tired hand, but it was reaching for the light. It was reaching for hope. Leo felt a fire in his stomach. He picked up his brush again. He mixed a bright white with a little bit of yellow. He carefully touched the canvas. He made the light a little bit brighter. "I will try," Leo whispered to the empty room. "I have no money, but I have this painting." He decided to apply. He knew the answer would probably be no, or maybe the answer would be yes, but he would have to say no because of the money. But he had to know. He had to know if he was good enough. Later that evening, the front door opened. It opened slowly, with a creak. Sarah walked in. She looked very tired. Her uniform smelled like fried onions and coffee. She took off her shoes and groaned. "Hi, Mom," Leo said. He put down his brush. "Hi, baby," Sarah said. She smiled, but her eyes were sad. She walked over to the easel. She looked at the painting. Her eyes widened. She stood there for a long time. She did not speak. "Is it okay?" Leo asked. He was nervous. Sarah touched her cheek. "Leo," she said softly, "it is beautiful. It makes me feel happy and sad at the same time. It is amazing." Leo smiled. "I want to send it to the school in Italy." Sarah's face fell. She looked at the flyer on the table. She looked at the price. She bit her lip. She sat down on the sofa. "Leo," she began. Her voice was shaky. You know we don't have $5,000. Even if you get in, how can we pay?" "I know, Mom," Leo said. He held her rough hand. "I know. I just want to send it. I just want to see if they like it. Please, it costs nothing to apply online." Sarah looked at her son. She saw the hope in his eyes. She could not say no to that look. She squeezed his hand. "Okay," she said. "Send it. Let them see how talented my son is." The next day, Leo went to the library. The library was cool and quiet. He used the big scanner. He scanned his painting carefully. The colors on the screen looked bright and true. He filled out the application form. Name, Leo Miller. Address, Brooklyn, New York. Date of birth, July 12th, 2007. He uploaded the image of hope in the abyss. He wrote a short essay about why he loved art. He wrote about how art was his escape from the noise and the poverty. He pressed the submit button. Then the waiting began. Days turned into weeks. August turned into September. The weather changed. The air became cooler. The leaves on the trees in the park turned yellow and brown. Leo went to school. He did his homework. He helped his mom cook dinner. But every day he checked his email. Nothing. He started to forget about it. He told himself it was a stupid idea. Why would a famous school in Italy want a poor boy from Brooklyn? They probably had applications from rich kids who had private lessons and big studios. Then, on a rainy Tuesday, it happened. Leo was at the library again. He logged into his email. There was a new message. The subject line said, "Florence Academy of Art, Admission Decision." His heart beat very fast. It went thump, 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 thump. His hands shook. He clicked on the email. "Dear Mr. Miller," it said, We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted into our summer intensive program." Leo gasped. He covered his mouth with his hand. The librarian looked at him and said, "Shh." Leo read it again. Accepted. He got in. He was good enough. A smile stretched across his face. He felt like he was flying. But then he read the next paragraph. "Please confirm your attendance by October 15th. A tuition deposit of $500 is due immediately. The remaining balance of $4,500 is due by November 1st. Leo stopped smiling. He felt cold. October 15th was next week. November 1st was soon. He closed his eyes. $5,000. It was still $5,000. The email did not change the money in their bank account. He walked home in the rain. He did not feel the cold water on his face. He only felt a heavy weight in his heart. When he got home, he showed the email to Sarah. She screamed with joy. She hugged him tight. "You did it! You did it!" she cried. She danced around the small kitchen. Then Leo pointed to the money part. Sarah stopped dancing. She read the numbers. She sat down at the table. The silence in the room was loud. The refrigerator hummed. The rain hit the window. Tap, tap, tap. "We have $300 in the savings jar," Sarah said quietly, "and rent is due on Friday." Leo nodded. He did not cry. He was too old to cry. "It's okay, Mom," he said. "I knew it. I just wanted to know if I could get in, and I did. That is enough." "It is not enough," Sarah said. She looked angry, not at Leo, but at the world. "You deserve this. It is not fair." They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Sarah stood up. She wiped her eyes. "We have to tell them," she said. "We have to be polite. We can't just ignore them. We have to withdraw your application." "I know," Leo said. "I will email them." "No," Sarah said. She stood up straighter. "I will call them. I want to thank them for accepting you. It is a great honor. I will explain that we cannot come." Leo felt a lump in his throat. "Okay, Mom." 2 days later, Sarah had a day off. It was time to make the call. Because of the time difference, they had to call early in the morning. It was 8 a.m. in New York, which meant it was afternoon in Italy. Sarah sat by the phone. She had a piece of paper with notes on it. She was nervous. She practiced what she wanted to say. "Hello, my name is Sarah. Unfortunately, financial difficulties." Leo sat across from her. He was drawing in his sketchbook, but he was not really drawing. He was just moving the pencil. He was listening. Sarah dialed the number. It was a long international number. She waited. "Hello?" a voice answered. It was a woman's voice. She spoke with a beautiful Italian accent. "Florence Academy of Art. How can I help you?" "Hello," Sarah said. Her voice shook a little. "I am calling about my son, Leo Miller." "Ah, yes," the woman said. "Leo Miller. One moment, please." There was the sound of typing on a keyboard. Click, click, click. "Yes, here he is," the woman said. "Leo Miller from Brooklyn. We sent his acceptance letter 2 days ago. Are you calling to pay the deposit?" Sarah closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She looked at Leo. Leo looked down at his shoes. "No," Sarah said. "I am sorry. I am calling to withdraw his application." There was silence on the other end of the phone. "Withdraw?" the woman asked. "May I ask why? Is he going to another school?" "No," Sarah said. She tried to keep her voice steady. "No, he is not going to another school. He wants to come very much. It is his dream. But we cannot afford the tuition. The $5,000 it is impossible for us right now. I am a single mother. We just don't have the money." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. It was hard to say this to a stranger. It was hard to admit they were poor. "I see," the woman said. Her voice was soft. "Please wait one moment, Mrs. Miller. Do not hang up." Music started playing on the phone. It was classical music, violins and cellos. Sarah waited. She looked at Leo and shrugged her shoulders. She wanted to hang up, but the woman said to wait. 1 minute passed, then 2 minutes. It felt like an hour. Finally, the music stopped. A different voice came on the phone. This time, it was a man. His voice was deep and warm. "Hello, Mrs. Miller," the man said. "My name is Marco. I am the director of admissions." "Hello," Sarah whispered. She was scared now. Why was the director talking to her? "I understand you want to withdraw Leo's application because of the cost." "Yes, sir," Sarah said. "We are very sorry to waste your time." "Mrs. Miller, you are not wasting our time," Marco firmly said. "I have Leo's file in front of me. I'm looking at the digital image of his painting. Hope in the Abyss? Is that correct?" "Yes," Sarah said. "I must tell you," Marco continued, "we look at thousands of paintings every year. We see paintings from students all over the world. Many are good, very technical, very correct." He paused. Sarah held her breath. Leo looked up from his sketchbook. "But Leo's painting," Marco said, "it is different. It is not just a picture. It has a soul. It has deep emotion. When the committee saw this painting, we stopped talking. We just looked at it. We felt the darkness, and we felt the hope." Sarah started to cry silently. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "We were going to send you another email tomorrow," Marco said. "But since you are on the phone, I will tell you now." "Tell me what?" Sarah asked. "Every year," Marco said, "the Academy selects one student, just one. We select the student with the most potential, but who cannot afford to come. We call it the Da Vinci Scholarship." Sarah's hand gripped the phone tightly. Her knuckles turned white. "The scholarship covers everything," Marco explained. "It pays for the tuition, the full $5,000. It pays for the art supplies. It pays for the dormitory room. And it also pays for the plane ticket." Sarah gasped. A loud sound came from her throat. Leo jumped up. "Mom, what is it?" Sarah could not speak to Leo yet. She spoke into the phone. "Sir, are you serious?" "I am very serious, Mrs. Miller," Marco said. He sounded like he was smiling. "We do not want to lose Leo's talent because of money. We want him here in Florence. We want to see what he can do. Leo has won the Da Vinci Scholarship." Sarah started to laugh and cry at the same time. She was sobbing. "Thank you," she said. "Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much." "You are welcome," Marco said. "Please check your email in 10 minutes. The details will be there. We will see Leo in the summer. Goodbye, Mrs. Miller." "Goodbye," Sarah said. She put the phone down. She sat there, covering her face with her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. Leo was scared. He knelt down in front of her. "Mom, what happened? Did they yell at you? Is it okay?" Sarah moved her hands. Her face was wet with tears, but she had the biggest smile Leo had ever seen. It was a smile of pure joy. "Leo," she said. She grabbed his shoulders. "You are going." "What?" Leo asked. He was confused. "But the money." "There is no money," Sarah said. She laughed. "I mean, we don't have to pay. They gave you a scholarship, Leo, the Da Vinci Scholarship. Free tuition, free room, free plane ticket. Everything is free." Leo froze. He looked at his mother. He looked at the painting on the easel. "Hope in the Abyss." "Everything?" Leo whispered. "Everything," Sarah said.
They said your painting was special. They said it had a soul. Leo stood up slowly. He walked to the window. He looked out at the Brooklyn street. It was still hot. The cars were still loud. The concrete was still cracked. But it looked different now. The world looked brighter. He thought about the dark hole in his painting. He thought about the hand reaching up. He thought he was painting a picture of his sadness, but he realized now that he was painting his future. He had reached up from the abyss, and someone had grabbed his hand. He turned back to his mother. She stood up and opened her arms. Leo ran to her. They hugged each other tightly in the small, hot apartment. They cried together, but this time the tears were not salty with sadness. They were sweet. "Italy," Leo said into his mother's shoulder. "Italy," Sarah repeated. On the easel, the paint on Hope in the Abyss was dry. The little golden light at the top seemed to shine brighter than ever before. It wasn't just paint anymore. It was a promise. Leo was going to be an artist, and he was going to Florence.
Great work today. Keep going. Every lesson helps you improve your English. I'm excited to see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fun lessons. Keep learning and see you again soon.